Okay, welcome everyone. I have apologies from Councillors Butcher, Hudson, Staines, Bezette and Brown. If I move that those apologies be accepted, I have a second for that, please. Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Confirmation of the agenda. Are there any additions? I'm not aware of anything to be added, but if any of you are planning to submit, then no.
That's a good idea.
All right, I'll move that the agenda be confirmed. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. We have only the one submitter today, Michelle Blair from PetFix. Michelle, if you'd like to come and join us. Before we start, can we be reassured that there are no firearms involved in this process at all?
That's why I'm here, really.
Right.
I should say Sophie from the SPCA is here also with me.
Well, Sophie, join us at the table, please. And you have 10 minutes as an organisation, so the time's yours.
Okay. Can I sit? Can I sit?
Yep. Yes, indeed.
So, hello everybody. Thank you for having us here today. My name's Michelle and I'm representing an organisation I started a year ago called PetFix, which is a charitable trust. So we subsidise the cost of cat desexing operations for people on low incomes with the aim of reducing the amount of unwanted cats that are in Dunedin. And I'm here out of a concern for recent solutions to the cat problem in Dunedin, possibly starting with Gareth Morgan's inspired views and more recently in the paper. I just think that these solutions are, a bit dangerous, stupid, if I may be frank, and also inhumane. So I think there are very real solutions that we could come up with together, and the fact that these things are making the media now is suggesting to me that it is a public concern and needs to be addressed. So Sophie and I have come along today just to open dialogue really as to what could be done, and as an organisation, PetFix and the SPCA are playing a role and wanting to play a role in that process. So I might just hand over to Sophie now and she can add some more.
Yeah, hi. SPCA has been in Otago now for 130 years. So I have been in the role for the Executive Officer for 7 months now, which I'm really enjoying. So basically, since I've been here, we have probably weekly have people phoning us about wild cats, getting in their compost bin, pooing in their gardens, etc., etc. SPCA is there to look after the welfare of animals. So basically, if there was a wild feral cat that was diseased, had been hit by a car, injured, by all means we go out to that and take care of it. What we're finding a real struggle as of late is people ringing us and expecting us to take responsibility for, cats that are wild in their backyard, like having a rat in your roof, for example, and ringing, maybe ringing the council and then the council putting them onto the SPCA. But really something that we don't have the resource to deal with. So we're there for looking after the welfare. And by all means, if one of these cats was sick or injured, we would look after it then, but we just can't and don't have the resource to look after every single wild cat in the city. So we're really wanting to, Michelle and I had a chat the other day, to see if we can come to, I don't know if you're even aware of the problem. The council does deal with it at times when it becomes an environmental nuisance. So if there's, say, 13 cats in your backyard and your kids are playing in their faeces, then possibly the council may step in and do something about that cat population in your backyard. So at the present time, basically, every organisation around the city seems to be handing it off to the next one. So we've just got a new organisation, Cat Rescue in Dunedin now, as I'm sure you're aware. And I think they are picking up. So we're just passing it amongst each other. The council's passing it to the SPCA, and we're just passing it amongst each other. We need to do something about it, put some kind of plan together, I think, to see if we can sort out the problem together rather than passing it on to each other all the time.
I might just add that I think there's two aspects to the problem, and one is that it is a very real problem just with the nature of how cats breed. You know, it's an exponential population explosion if you don't get to it quickly, and I will illustrate with my poster. So that's just an infographic really of, you know, what can happen. And on the back of my t-shirt it says that 1 + 1 over 7 years can equal 420,000 cats. So that just gives you a little illustration of, you know, the problem is that it just explodes, and if we can get to cats before that happens, and before those cats down the chain, their offspring become wild cats. Also, the other part of the problem, I believe, is just that cats are being demonised. You know, it's like they're not this evil force, but they're being made to appear that way, and I think the public perception, if we can be seen to be doing something, then I think that will change the way that people think they need to be doing something themselves that could be dangerous. Thank you.
We have a couple of things that we're doing in the next few months, SPCAs. We've got the mobile de-sexing caravan coming down from the North Island. So that's a free service that the SPCA runs throughout the country. So we're going to have the ability to de-sex 400 cats in Dunedin in 3 weeks in December. And also running with the university and the Otago Polytechnic end of next week, a clinic for students' cats too, getting them microchipped. So hopefully it'll help us control that problem in North Dunedin a little bit as well.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Sophie, just so you're aware, that the nature of the forum is for you to speak to us, and councillors can ask questions. What we aren't able to do is engage in debate around that. But it may well be that if you are looking for some further partnership, then perhaps one of the things that you might want to have a think about is through next year's annual plan, actually coming to council with something concrete around that, which is a way in which citizens can initiate an interaction with council, which we can't do really around this table. Councillor Stevenson and then Councillor Wilson.
Right, can I ask a question first? Sorry, I can't remember your name. Sophie and then Michelle, that's right. Okay, so you've got this mobile D6, which is a really good concept, and it comes only for 3 weeks in December. Is there any chance that we can get it for orientation, around that orientation period?
Yeah, we're through the SPCA, so it goes right around the D6 students.
Well, no.
So basically what it is it covers all SPCAs, so there's 50 SPCAs in New Zealand, so it covers every SPCA, so we've just got to pretty much take it when we get it.
Okay, that's a good answer. And so for PetFix, could you give me an idea, Michelle, how many do you manage to do within a year?
Yeah. Well, we've only been running for 1 year, so we've probably done about 80 in our first year, but we're assuming that we can do more than that. That was, you know, because we were setting up, etc. And as we're still in the process too of figuring out how to get funding and learning the skills around applying for funding, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay then. And so does that fully cover the cost of de-sexing a cat for low-income people or partially?
So what we do low-cost de-sexing, so it means that we charge $20 for a male cat and $40 for a female. Mm-hmm. So we believe that that's affordable for most people, plus still retain some sense of responsibility for the cat owner.
Right.
We are open to negotiation if people really can't manage that, but we do expect some sort of, donation at some point in time. Yeah.
And finally, just with the students, I mean, is there any way we could work with maybe the OUSA to try and get them to...
We are
that
at the
is
moment.
happening,
So next week we've got that fixed. We've got to take the fund on in conjunction using the veterinary new school.
Councillor Wilson.
Congratulations, Michelle, on your initiative. You've talked about solutions and you've talked about problems, but I'm not sure that all of them have been identified. And I think that possibly is something we need to work on, because while there's environmental nuisance that you talked about, but there's also the bird life and those other components to it which you haven't addressed. And I'm not sure Do you know of any results of desexing having a effect on predator behaviour?
But basically, there's those famous Bob Kerridge, who's now resigned from the SPCA. But so there's basically three types of cats. So there's feral cats, there's wild cats, who pretty much have been somebody's cat and rely on human or for food, and there's your wild domestic cat. The feral cats, which supposedly are the ones that actually dine on birds, you'll never see them. They're the ones that live in the bush, and they hear somebody, they disappear. But the cats that we're talking about are the cats that actually rely on human beings to live.
Okay. No, that's great. I think, certainly I'm happy to say that I think there's a discussion that, even before annual plan next year, that P&E can investigate. It's certainly an area that's come up in my chairmanship over my time. You're looking for donations. I think this is an area, as you rightly say, Michelle, that has got the public interest. I presume that you'll be happy to share your bank account details or a way of people giving that we could put on our website as a council and promote that, but also the process of coming to you for funding, if that would be okay.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Because there's nothing like telling people who want to do this stuff how to do it or how to assist.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I need to do next is get some skills in how to get funding, basically. So that's a whole other thing. But
how have you funded it to date?
We've had 2 grants, but that was people on our behalf got those grants for us, so we didn't actually go through the process. And the rest has just been, your usual grassroots sitting outside supermarkets type stuff.
Councillor Victoria.
Thank you. Thank you both for coming along. The question that I have, and you may not know the answer and no one may know the answer, but do we have any idea how many wild cats there are in Dunedin?
I have no idea.
We have no idea either, but I think there's a great big, in Dunedin especially, huge. The students are quite a problem, especially for us. And the SPCA, we have a general policy. We don't adopt anybody that lives in the North Dunedin area. So you might be a doctor living in North Dunedin, but yes, you still won't let you have a cat. It's a huge problem for us.
So, I guess I'm doing the maths, so 1 + 1 = 420,000 in 7 years, and thinking that there's probably an awful lot of wild cats in Dunedin, and just wondering whether desexing is ultimately going to be the full solution to this problem, or whether it is in fact going to be a suite of solutions and different approaches, and perhaps different approaches in different areas that might improve the situation.
What they have done at Auckland, and it has worked really well in cat colonies in Auckland, which I don't necessarily agree with personally, is the trap, neuter and return. So basically they're trapping and neutering and returning to the cats to where they've come from. So basically they can't multiply, they can't have kittens. And generally if there is a colony of cats out there, basically if you took the colony away, then a new group of cats is going to move in. But if you trap them, neuter and release them or return them, then basically that population, populations die out. They start huge, and then with natural attrition and disease and whatsoever, they get smaller. But and that has worked really, really well. And it's a couple of huge colonies in Auckland.
I guess because 420,000 over 7 years, I imagine a lot of those wouldn't survive. But my concern is with minimising suffering and being humane. So, I would prefer to have preventional strategies in place so that animals aren't getting diseased and dying and having miserable lives. I think desexing can make quite a difference, because it's, like those kind of equations of 1 + 1 = 420,000 over 7 years. That started with 1 cat essentially, and has branched off. So I do think, it's easy to think how can desexing, a certain number of cats make a difference, but it really, really does, just by the nature of how cats exponentially breed.
Councillor van der Vlies.
Sophie, you've differentiated between feral cats and wild cats. And the suggestion that since feral cats are never seen, they're never going to be trapped and there's nothing you can do about them anyway. They are simply going to live off the bird population. They're going to be there. Is that the case?
But you can, of course, if once you trap, if you've ever seen a feral cat, you've seen, they're terrible, terrible looking things. I mean, you can trap them and basically all you can do to them is euthanize them. So you can definitely trap wild cats and euthanize wild cats, which is, but if you tried to if you brought a feral cat to the SPCA and let it out of its cage, it would be hanging from the ceiling in 3 seconds. So they're really, really hard to deal with and they're quite dangerous.
And they're not something that you would even try to de-sex?
No, I don't. Not a feral cat, I don't think. That's my personal opinion. But if you've got to think about their welfare.
Okay. If we have a feral cat population that there's really not much we can do about, how is it that we're going to deal with a wild cat population that rely on human feeding? Shouldn't we be actually trying to educate people about not feeding these cats?
Yeah, absolutely. Agree. But it's hard if you get a cat turning up. You know, so many people go, got this cat at our back door, been feeding it for 4 weeks, what do I do?
And this is particularly a problem in Dunedin North?
We get all the time. One of my girls just answered the phone to that before I walked out the door. They've been feeding this cat for 4 weeks. Well, been feeding the cat for 4 months. It won't go away. So, and of course, it's not going to go away to keep on feeding it. And the cats do the rounds. Cats are not silly. They'll go to 5 people on the street for breakfast. And people just feeding them encourages them.
Well, personally, I would have to disagree slightly with that and say that I don't see it as a problem feeding the cats as long as someone is taking responsibility for getting them de-sexed. I can totally understand people feeding those cats. It's quite. There's a lot of people that will not turn their back on animals when they need to be fed, but you can't just keep feeding them and then letting them breed because that just creates an ongoing problem.
So, are you saying that we really need to have some kind of education program aimed at Dunedin North? I mean, this is your main area of concern?
Yes, I think so, and I think that is happening, starting to happen. Marjorie Orr from the SPCA is doing some of that, and there is people within the OUSA that have that role now too, and we're also involved to some extent as well, yeah. But yes, I do agree, education is a big part of it.
So just to sum up, and we need to stop people feeding cats that haven't been de-sexed, and we need to make people aware that there is a relatively moderate cost of $40 for a female and $20 for a male to get them de-sexed. Who do they go to if there's a cat that they've been feeding for a month, they realise they need to de-sex it, who do they go to get it de-sexed?
They would go to Michelle to get it de-sexed, but if they were feeding it and decided they didn't want it, it's basically stray, it's been abandoned, so it becomes my problem. And so basically what would happen is we'd take it in, if it can be rehomed, we'd get them de-sexed and then rehome it.
And if not, they're euthanized?
If it's sick and diseased. And SPCA has a saving lives philosophy, so basically it's been around for about 5 years, so basically everything that can be rehomed will be rehomed. It's not sick and diseased.
And if it can't be rehomed?
We'd euthanize.
Okay. All right. What would you like us to do as a council?
So it's basically because we've got 200 cats at SPCA at any one time, right through the year, and that's not in kitten season. So when we have kittens, we have mothers and kittens out on foster. We've got about 20 fosterers that will take kittens and mothers of all, from brand new. So at any one time in the kitten season, we could be feeding and housing 300 cats and kittens, which is huge. It's a huge drain on our resources. So it would be really nice to see everybody be able to work together. So it's, sometimes people ring up and they say, they'll ring and they'll say, I've got 6 cats in my backyard. Chasing my cat, eating my cat's food. I can't get my hands on them. What am I going to do? If you can't get your hands on them, we can't rehome them. So, and then because of this whole saving lives philosophy, we can't. It's really hard for us to take them and we can't afford to go and catch them and euthanize them. But we're here for the welfare of animals. So I'd really like to see, all these organisations, Cat Rescue, SPCA, and come to some kind of arrangement where, okay, we're going to do this, you're going to do that. When it gets to this bad, the council will take it. When there's 3 cats, the SPCA will look after it. When it's 6, the council might look after it. Rather than just passing everything, because at the moment it's just getting passed back and forward.
All right, so what you're wanting really is for all the organisations involved to work together.
Yes.
Would the SPCA be interested in taking a lead role in that? Because that would usually be the first port of call for people to call, I suspect. So if the SPCA takes a lead role, then you'd be looking to the council to increase its ability to deal with some problem cats.
Yes.
Okay.
Because at the moment, basically, it's just a blanket no. And and it's hard, and it's hard. And there's some cases we can't help either. So these poor people that are sitting with 6 people and chasing it. These cats come inside and chase their cats around their own house and spray everywhere. And these poor people, it's like, sorry, we can't help you. The council can't help you. Just going to deal with the problem yourself. And it's some people can't afford it. It's people are having to get in the pest people to look after it, and it comes out of their own pocket.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Stevenson and Councillor McTavish.
Okay, I was just thinking, Michelle, your program's fitting you. Have you ever talked to, is it Ros McGill, an environmental staff? You haven't? No. You're quite open to the concept of talking to her, seeing how your program is best to expand?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, definitely. And, obviously for us, money's a thing. I mean, if you want me to be honest about what I would like some money, that would be great. And I guess, education, if, the council can somehow, work in educating public. I mean, one of the problems we have is even when I don't know if there's some way of having some authority to get people, insist that people get their cats desexed, because, we're finding at times, even at our cheap prices, people just don't bother. People, I don't know what it's about, but they don't realise that they need to, and then suddenly they're inundated with this problem. And even with, they'll ask for an application form, we'll send it out, and then we don't get it back. So it's like, you can make it as simple as you can, but people often won't do things unless they have to. And I don't know if there's a way of making people, but it'd be good if there was.
Councillor McTavish.
Well, mine's, I guess, just following on from that. We do stuff with dogs specifically as a council because we're required to by statute and by legislation. Is there any dialogue happening between SPCA and any national level politicians in opposition or currently in government about legislation which might require local authorities around the country to register cats and those things in the same way that dog registration is required?
No, it's not. And I understand that's where our problem comes in trying to make rules about cats. It's hard because there's no policy around it.
So SPCA isn't in dialogue with central government about that?
Not as far as I'm aware.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry. Can I ask a couple of questions myself? What does it cost to get a cat desexed if you take it to a vet?
If you take it, there's a number of vets in Dunedin and Mosgiel, and they all vary. So pretty much you could pay anywhere from, you probably pay up to $300 to get a cat spayed at a vet, and probably around about $250 to get a male castrated.
So Michelle, how do you manage to do it for 40 and 20?
So we have the support of a vet in Mosgiel, which is amazing. They already have what I consider to be reasonable prices. So I think they charge about 70 for a male and maybe around 100 for a female, which is quite reasonable. And they give it to us half price. So essentially, it's not so for each cat. Not a huge amount is coming out of our pocket because we're already getting that for half price. So say we're paying, it might actually be about 60 we're paying for a female, although it depends if they're pregnant or how far along they are. So if people are paying 40, it might only be $20 that's coming out of our pocket, depending, as I say, on whether they're pregnant. And so that means we can do quite a lot in a relatively short amount of money. But of course, if we start getting huge amounts of people applying, it might be too much to expect one vet to carry that for us. So we'll need to try and get other vets on board and try and get sort of deals that are good like that too.
Well, flowing on from that, and this has the potential to be hugely misinterpreted, so I'll try and be careful with my words, but this is 20 years ago, nurses in hospitals would not be doing some of the things that doctors didn't consider them capable of doing that they do now, including various invasive procedures. My question is, therefore, what constrains, for example, a nurse or anybody else from doing assembly line surgery in the same way that cataracts are assembly line surgery in a private hospital? One person's being wheeled in the doors, another one's being wheeled out, and the amount they can get through in a morning, it's nice work if you can get it. So what is it is it the law that constrains this, or what?
Drugs that you need for pain relief, and because they need to be unconscious to have to be registered.
So it's anaesthesia that's the issue. Right.
And I mean, I have quite dialogue with the Polytech, because they've got a great clinic down there in the Polytech veterinary school that's used 2 days a week. So basically, it's huge potential to get lots and lots and lots of cats through there as well. But it's just the constraints with it all.
Okay.
And it's with the vets, it's the dealing with the public that take all the time. We're going to run a half-price D6 on the Consensual Otago in September, and we're going to be doing all the running around, because it's so easy for the SPCA, here's the next one, here's the next one, here's the next one, rather than, because the vets have to go through the whole consultation process like when you go to the doctor. They have to sit down and tell you what to do afterwards, and so it's dealing with the public that takes a long time as well.
And the other question I had was really to you, Michelle. You indicated that you'll be contacted by people, but they never ever get the paperwork in, and I suspect that they're probably at the more inadequate owner end of the spectrum. And I suppose my question is, why do you put the potential barrier of the paperwork there? Why are you not able to say to that person over a telephone, to ask them a few questions and establish whether they would be appropriate, and say, can you come in next Wednesday or whenever it is?
Yeah, that's a good question. Initially, when we started, we were doing that essentially, but there's a few reasons. One is just our resources. I mean, in all honesty, it's partly a relief when only half of our forms come back, because we can only actually do a certain amount. The other is, I do think there's enough that we can actually do with people who are willing to engage and take some level of responsibility, because there's a lot of people with the cost of living rising so dramatically that can't actually afford the operation, but are genuinely responsible pet owners other than that. So there's enough kind of to be going on without actually addressing that end. Ideally, I would like to be addressing those people, but I am conflicted in the sense that I think that I'm willing to do so much, but I also expect people to do a little bit themselves. Cat Rescue Dunedin, they seem to be working more at that end with people, where they are kind of, I see them as being animal social workers in a sense. They go into people's homes often and negotiate with them around what they can do. They're more face-to-face, whereas part of the reason I started PetFix actually was I wanted a bit of distance between me and people. I wanted to do something to help, but I didn't want to get pulled into the vortex of all this, it's depressing. It's, emotion. People are struggling on so many levels, and I'm not really keen to get too involved in that.
I'm going to offer a solution.
Could I ask you to hold that
Yeah.
just for a second, because the ever-vigilant Councillor van der Vest has pointed out that I didn't move the minutes for confirmation.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the minutes for confirmation in a second if there's no more questions. Then if there are actions arising, which is I think what you're going to suggest sits, I'll then take that then, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
So are there any other questions? Thank you. You've been rather fortunate that you're the only submitters, most unusually today, so you've had longer than you've probably normally got, but you've certainly conveyed the problem and the issues to us. So we'll see what Councillor Wilson has to say, but I also reiterate that there are mechanisms too for members of the public to come to council with proposals, because often that's what's needed to kick something, is rather than we need to do something, as this is what we would like to suggest that you consider. Okay, thank you very much. Can I will move the minutes, confirmation of the minutes as a true and correct record. Do I have a second? Thank you. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Actions arising?
Look, I'm just going to offer to try and coordinate a meeting of the parties to ensure that we can identify the problems, because I think that in itself might be helpful to the next P&E, if they can do anything, and potential solutions just to be investigated to what each party can do. That would be a good start to understanding some of the stuff. And I'm happy to coordinate that relatively soon.
So Michelle, do we have your contact? We don't know we have the SPCA, but...
I'll just leave a few copies of our pamphlet here. Yeah.
Okay, so you understand that that's the resolution. I'll check that there's a seconder for that. Right. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I'm happy to attend as well.
Well, I'm sure any council, I'll let people know when it's on, that's one thing. Yeah.
Well, I'll put it. Those in favour? Against? Carried. So somebody will be in touch. Our people will talk to your people. We'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There are no other matters, no other submitters, so I'll call an end to the meeting, and we can't unfortunately start our next meeting until 2 o'clock, so talk amongst yourselves.
Welcome everybody to this meeting of the Community Development Committee. Apologies. We have from Councillors Butcher, Hudson, Staines and Latus from the Mayor. I'll move that. Seconded Councillor Wilson. Any discussion? I'll put that. All those in favour please say aye. Against, and that's carried. Confirmation of agenda. Okay, I'll move it. Second, Councillor Wilson. All those in favour please say aye. Against, it's carried. Declaration of interest. That's just for everyone's reminder. So we now move on to the minutes of Toitū Otago Settlers Museum Board, and there's a Part A and Part B, which are two separate meetings. They need to be moved. Councillor Bizet? Yep. Moved, and seconded Councillor Vandervis. Any discussion? Not, I'll put those two. All those in favour please say aye. Aye. Against, and that's carried. Thank you. The minutes of the Community Assistance Subcommittee. Councillor McTavish.
I'm happy to move that the minutes of the meeting held on 21st May 2013 be noted.
Thank you. Seconded Councillor Stevenson. Any discussion? Not, I'll put that. All those in favour please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. That takes us to item 7, which is the Otago Museum Quarterly Report. Oh, I missed cited 2, sorry. Jumping the gun. So that's the minutes of the Events Assessment Subcommittee. Move Councillor Vandervis. Sorry, move Councillor Bizet, seconded Councillor Vandervis. Any discussion? Not, I'll put that. All those in favour please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Now we're on to item 7, which is the Otago Museum Quarterly Report to June 2013. I invite to the table Dr. Ian Griffin and Chairman Graham Crombie. Welcome, gentlemen. And Ian, I think this is your first time to this table, is it?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
So look, welcome along.
Thank you.
How are you finding your new role?
Well, it's fantastic.
Excellent.
Love it.
Excellent. Well, look, it's your report, so if you'd like to add any comments to it, we'd love to.
Perhaps I might just take a couple of introductory comments if I can, and then hand to Ian for detail. The report is there, and I'm sure you've all read it and taken it to where it is. There's probably 3 or 4 key things that I'd like to highlight that's gone on in this last period in the museum. First of that is around Ian's arrival, obviously. Been here essence towards the end of May, so 6-7 weeks in the process, and that's obviously been quite a major exercise for us as a museum. Ian's carried out a fair amount of stakeholder work, which is included in here, and in fact he's met over 100 of our external stakeholders plus all our staff and management groups in there, so he's been busy getting his head around what's going on from that, and that will lead us to some comments that Ian will make about where we're going with the museum. Second couple of major exercises for us too, some of you were involved Friday week back where we opened the latest exhibition of the Shanghai Museum from the Indigenous Peoples exhibition. That's now underway, and that's just a continuation of our relationship with Shanghai. So it's been quite a big exercise to get that in play. That is now open and running to November, sometime around about there. The other major piece of work going on is the conversion of the old Dunedin North Post Office, and that is coming to fruition. We're anticipating it's now going to be called the H.D. Skinner Annex, but that'll be opening within the next couple of 3 weeks, and no doubt you'll get invited into that process as well. The initial exhibition there is a joint exhibition with the Historical Places Trust on some of the building stuff around Dunedin and the history from there. It is looking good, I can tell you from what I've seen, and so that's again another piece of work with us that has been going on for some time, but we're about to get that in play. And I guess the fourth thing I would highlight from a chair's perspective is that the museum's working pretty hard at addressing structures and where we're going in the future. So we do have some operational trends which are challenging. We have some changes happening in our environment, and so part of Ian's educational listening to people piece has been around trying to get his head around that as well. So that's the introductory comments. I'll hand to Ian perhaps as his place where he thinks going, and then happy to take any questions at all.
Thank you, Graham. Ian, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to add a piece of information. Obviously, this report came out just before the end of our financial year, so I'm happy to report the final visitor numbers for the year. We ended up with 464,670, 464,670. That compares to previous year's visitor numbers of 480,887, so it's slightly down. I couldn't quite work out the percentage in my head. I think it's 5 or so, maybe a bit less. As Graham said, I've spent most of my first few weeks and months here speaking to people outside the museum, listening actually to people outside the museum to hear what they have to say about the museum. And I've certainly learnt a lot from those conversations, and a lot of that information will be kind of folded into the process of change that we are about to introduce at the museum going forwards. I'm very conscious of the fact that this is a much-loved museum. It's a world-class museum with extraordinary collections, artifacts ranging from incredible tonga to amazing things from HMS Bounty, all sorts of wonderful stuff. And I see it as my job to really make the most of our collection, ensure it's preserved for future generations, but also make sure that we have a fantastic visitor experience for folks who come through the doors, and perhaps inspire some of the young children to take interest in the sciences and their culture. Going forward, a major thing for us is in 5 years' time. It's our 150th birthday in 2018, and I'll be looking to put together a set of proposals around that, some of which will be around changing exhibitions and things like that. That's all part of the mix at the moment. I'd just like to put on record, though, a thank you to everybody who's spoken to me about the museum over the last few weeks and months. It's certainly been an education for me, and I've learnt how much this museum is loved by the people of Dunedin and the people of Otago. And I see it very much as my duty to preserve, protect, and make the museum as best as it can be.
Thank you, Ian. Questions for Ian or Graham? Councillor Brown.
Ian, I was wondering if you could share with the committee your experience on how you got introduced to museums, because it's quite a fascinating story, and I'm pretty sure the committee would love to hear.
Oh yes, okay. Just briefly, my dad was a bus driver, and my mum was a supermarket checkout lady, and they both left school at 14. And for some reason, in the late 60s, I got really excited by Star Trek. And to shut me up one day, well, I don't know why it happened, but to shut me up, my father took me to the Science Museum because I just kept asking questions about space and stuff. And that visit to the museum kind of really transformed my life. It really made me excited and want to know more about science. And really, you know, I can track my whole career, you know, going through education, getting a PhD, to that inspirational moment. And I think often we forget this. I do think museums play a critical role, not just in terms of preserving the past, but also they're places that do inspire young people especially to take an interest in their culture. And I've spoken during my career to a number of folks, when I used to work for NASA, several astronauts said that, you know, their first visit to a planetarium or to a museum really set up, you know, their own careers. So I do think that the role that museums play in education and inspiration is often overlooked, and it's one of the things that I think is the most important of the work that we do. So, as I said in a little speech a few weeks ago, I want the folks coming through the door, especially the young people, to get that inspirational spark, and who knows where they'll go.
Good. Councillor Vandervis.
When I last went through the museum, I got to see the makings of a new artefact logging system where tens of thousands of items that you've got can actually be scanned as someone walks down past the shelving system. I believe it's something that was adapted from a supermarket system.
That's right, yes.
How far down the track is that? And is that something that we could also perhaps use at the Settlers or even the Art Gallery?
Well, I actually think that more collaboration amongst the museums and galleries in Dunedin, the better. I know we already have a similar, if not identical, collections management system called Vernon. The system we use is basically an RFID tag that we put on bits, articles in the collection. Now we think, we actually are in the process of an audit at the moment. We think we've got about 5 million items. We don't really know until we finish counting. And we've got about 10,000 tags. So we've got a fair way to go. But the aim is to kind of get a tag on everything, and that means that not only will we know where it is in the museum, but we can track if it leaves and understand, you know, its condition a little bit. So it is a very powerful, important system. I don't know what they do at the Settlers Museum, Toitu, but certainly I think it's something we should talk to them about, and hopefully we can learn from their experience too in setting up their new centre.
Great, thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor McTavish.
Thank you. Mine's just with reference to the annual community forum. One of the things that ever since I've come on council I've wondered about the potential for is linking in advance. At the DCC we'll know roughly and vaguely what consultations we might be having about strategies or whatever in the next year. And it seems to me that if the museum were also going to be running an exhibition at around the same time on a similar topic, that would have benefits both for visitation at the museum and also for enhancing the quality of the engagement that we have with our citizens. Is the community forum the time that it would be appropriate to raise those, or do you see any potential for collaboration in that regard?
Absolutely. Whether it's we can stage for community forums at any time, really. In our sense, the museum's always open to understanding what the community wants. That's a specific thing we host and we do. More than willing to discuss kind of doing a joint one if you think it's appropriate around topics of mutual interest. It would seem to be almost a no-brainer.
Any further questions? If not, would somebody like to move Councillor Vandervis, seconded Councillor Witherall? Any discussion? That's the noting of this report. Not all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Let's go. Thank you very much, Jim and Graham. And again, welcome to Dunedin and all the very best for the years to come. We move on to item number 8, which is a proposal to secure Dunedin as a venue for the future Masters Games. And we have coming to the head of the table now our, so I believe, nervous new Masters Games coordinator. This is Vicky Costella, and welcome, Vicky, to your first meeting at this table.
Thank you.
There'll be a lot more to come, I'm sure, and don't be nervous because all of the nasty stuff with the Masters Games, Aaron Joy took all that when he left and dealt with it on the way through too, of course. Now, I'm actually going to withdraw from this item and the next one just because there may be a perceived conflict of interest. I've been advised that there probably isn't, but just for its making sure, I'm going to hand the chair over to Councillor Noon, and he will take you through the next 2 items.
Welcome, Vicky, for the second time, sorry.
Is there anything that you would like to comment with regard to the report, or Rebecca? Either of you?
Sue has actually been dealing with that a lot, so I'm going to leave that to her.
Sorry, Dr. Bidrose, would you like to make some initial comments with regards to the report?
I think it's rather self-explanatory. The rights to hold the Dunedin, every alternate year New Zealand Masters Games here in Dunedin have got one more to run after the coming one. We've been in discussions with the New Zealand Masters Games company about the idea of extending our ability to run them, and also to cement the current informal arrangement where we have two people on the board, on the New Zealand Masters Games Company board. So they made us a number of offers. We made a number of counter offers, and that went backwards and forwards a few times, and we settled on an offer that we think is manageable, which is that we pay out of the New Zealand Masters Games budget, we pay $12,500 upfront fee. That's actually 1/3 of some expenditure that was made recently, so effectively that buys our 1/3 status on that company. In return, we get the Masters Games for 10 future games guaranteed for us, so that's 20 years or 10 games. They're held every second year. And in addition, if the New Zealand Masters Games Company runs at a loss, which it seldom does, we agree to potentially 1/3 of the underwrite again out of the Masters Games budget. And we put a cap on that of a maximum of $10,000 in any 1 year, and with 1 year's notice we can withdraw from this arrangement at any time. The current budget forecast for the next Masters Games, it is only a forecast, but we are looking on track to run at a modest profit, even after that $12,500 payment is made. That's a change from this time 2 years ago when we were looking at struggling to break even, but we now have a Masters Games naming rights sponsor, which was kindly facilitated by our new Masters Games person, so she's proving her own value. I think she's paying for her own salary more than actually, but so I think financially we're in a good position to commit to this. And as I say, with a year's notice, we can pull out. You'll be reminded. I'll just remind you that the arrangement is that in October of each year we come and tell you how the Masters Games are. In the October of every second year, we come and tell you how the finances are shaping up for the February games that are just about to come. And you actually get the option as the council of saying, that's too big a loss, we're not willing to wear that size of loss, and pulling us out at that point in time. So that's now formally part of the arrangement, the statement of intent service level agreement. That was something that we changed about a year and a half ago. So you do maintain quite a bit of control over this.
Thank you, Dr. Bidrose. Can I just ask with regards to the 12.5 before I go to Councillor Vandervis? Does effectively the 12,500 secure a 33% shareholding?
That's right.
Right.
Yep, and 10 more games.
Yep, through to 36 to 36. Councillor Vandervis.
Just on recommendation 2, the final bullet point talks about 2 of the 6 seats. You mentioned 2 people on the board. Can you clarify a wee bit what that actually means? The recommendation itself seems to be a bit open.
At the moment, the New Zealand Masters Games Company run the New Zealand... actually, Councillor Bazette can probably give you a better detail of the background of this than I. But there are 6 members on the board, and this means that the Dunedin Masters Games gets to appoint 2 of the 6 out of Dunedin City Council. Wanganui City Council appoint 2 of 6, and the New Zealand Masters Games Trust appoint 2 of 6.
So are the 2 seats staff members from the DCC?
No, they're 2 people off the Dunedin Masters Games Company.
And
which is a CCO trust.
Who is that currently?
Councillor Bazette and John Brimble. Now the people who are doing that role informally.
Okay, good. Thanks for that clarification.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Weatherall.
Yeah, that's helped some of the clarification, but let me just check. So the 3 shareholders are the New Zealand Master Games Limited, Wanganui Event Trust and Dunedin City Council?
No, sorry. The 3 shareholders are the Wanganui Events Trust, the Wanganui City Council, and then it would be the Dunedin City Council, or the Dunedin New Zealand Masters Games Trust.
Just help me through that. It means we don't have 2 organisations from the one geographical location have controlling interest. Why is that?
The Wanganui the New Zealand Masters Games Company is based in Wanganui, and so yes, four, I guess if you like, 4 members are elected out of Wanganui. The New Zealand Masters Games Trust is the overarching umbrella organisation for both Wanganui and Dunedin, or for the Masters Games. And then one franchise location is through Wanganui District Council, one franchise location is through Dunedin City Council.
How is the New Zealand Masters Games Limited members formed? How are the membership of that particular limited company, how are they appointed?
The company is owned by, there is 2 shareholders.
Oh, it's the 2 down that hold up.
Yeah.
That's good. Thanks, John. And what would happen, Mr. Bidwell, is if there wasn't sufficient funds, I'm not being negative, and it was a positive voter, but if there wasn't sufficient in the Dunedin New Zealand Masters Games budget to pay the $10,000, does it fall back on the City Council?
In any one year, so the worst thing that could happen is if the Dunedin, I don't think the Dunedin Masters Game, the New Zealand Masters Games Trust's run at a loss yet.
Not that I'm aware of.
I think that's right. But if it were to, okay.
I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Councillor Bezet.
There was just one alteration I'd like to make to the recommendations. That's the one to the 3rd bullet point, the one that Councillor Bandit has referred to. New Zealand Masters Games Trust guarantees a commitment to Dunedin Masters Games, and Phil, I would like to have put 2 words in there, at least fill 2 of the 6 seats. I can't imagine that changing, but it may be that at some stage, for a number of reasons, that Dunedin might have 3 members on that board, and that would just cover that.
Yes, certainly in the past, Dunedin has appointed, that has been responsible for the chair.
Traditionally, Wanganui chaired it because they were the original owners, and then the Wanganui Beach Trust came in, and we've had this set up since then. We've had two board members from the Events Trust and 2 from Wanganui District Council, 2 from Dunedin. But I can imagine a situation where we might, for example, have a chairperson there and want to have two board members as well. So that would make 3 from Dunedin, just depending on the skill set that you might need at any certain time. So I just think by adding those 2 words in, it gives us that opportunity to have an extra person in there, although, as I say, it hasn't happened as yet.
Okay, I'll come back to Councillor Bezet and Councillor Vandemas once we finish questions. Councillor McTavish.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the only thing that I did think reading this this proposal is that when we generally have proposals to secure events come to us, we do have some assessment of the financial impact of the Masters, and I know that document does exist, or at least there has been an assessment done in previous games years, and I have no doubt that it's more than 12,500. But I just, would it be possible for that to be circulated to councillors?
Rebecca?
It formed part of the Masters Games report that was presented to council last year. So that included an economic impact report.
Assessment.
So that's already been noted by council, but we can. Have you got that up? I have. Yeah. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Give
you another copy.
Yeah. I did recall having seen it. I just thought, well, just for clarity and for the purposes of full record.
The reason that it's not in here, Councillor McTavish, you'll note that these recommendations are about endorsing the proposed course of action. We're not asking council to agree or to pay the money. You could signal at this point to the Masters Games, which is a CCO, that you don't want them to do it. But in the end, it is their call. So they own the Masters Games and they own the budget. They are of a mind to sign up to this, and they're seeking council's endorsement of that course of action. But they're not asking council to pay the money. And as I say, they're on track for making a modest profit this year. So they do actually have the funding in order to do this, to sign up this way. So that's why this isn't an economic impact assessment to you, as would be the case, for example, in the major events subcommittee.
Thank you.
We did do an economic impact study in 2012, and it's available, and Vicky will get that to you. We didn't do one in 2010 because of the cost. We looked at the cost. It was going to cost us something around $7,000 or $8,000. So we decided at that time we wouldn't do it, but we will be doing one from now on because it's really important that we're able to, especially when we go to people for funding of race, to let them know just what the economic impact is for our games. So that'll be just part and parcel of what we do now.
Okay, any further questions? Everyone quite happy?
Can I speak to the motion?
Yep, I'll just get Councillor Bazette to hopefully move the recommendations with the amendment
Yeah,
to
will that change? Will those words added? Yes, I'll move the recommendations.
Moved by Councillor Bazette, second by Councillor Banibus. Speakers, Councillor Stevenson.
Yeah, this is a real no-brainer for me. I think this is an excellent initiative, and I want to see it continue. I mean, I'm really pleased that Wanganui run this really fantastic event, and it's a real pleasure to be the South Island partner with what they're doing and support what they're doing so that the older person into sport can come down to the South Island as well, so one North Island, one South Island. I think it's a beautiful synergy between the North Island and the South Island. Wanganui is not the hugest city in the world, and I think that, it's a great partnership. So good luck with it, and I thank Wanganui for including us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Councillor Thompson.
Look, totally supportive. Could I just though suggest that doing an economic appraisal each time strikes me as being something that's ultimately being done to justify to council, and I'm not sure that it's a good use of the money. I think that it does need to be done from time to time, but you know from the numbers, and you can extrapolate from previous results, and you can extrapolate from the information that Dunedin Tourism has in terms of what people spend with domestic visitors, people who stay in other people's homes, people who come from overseas. There's so much information out there that it's reasonable to make assumptions without asking the trust to spend money on it. If the numbers start to drop away, then it may be a question that needs to be asked from time to time. But if the numbers stay much the same or increase, then you can pretty much assume, I think, that if it stacked up previously, it still stacks up. And I would prefer to see the money spent on the event than on continual justification. Something changes? Yes. From time to time, yes. Every 2 years? I think that's enough.
I think you're absolutely right, but we could have a limited assessment of our financial games anyway, so we would look at that at the time.
Did you like to speak to the motion now, Phil? Quite happily. Councillor Banibus and then Councillor McTavish. Sorry, Rebecca wants to reply.
Just to confirm that the event staff are currently working with the policy team on doing economic impacts ourselves, and so we've just purchased the multipliers, whatever that is, and are currently going through some training, so staff will be able to do that. So the costs of doing some sort of economic impact reporting ourselves, so that the cost on the likes of the Masters Games will be dramatically reduced.
That's fine. Thank you. Councillor Banibus.
Yeah, I just wanted to support Councillor Thompson's view that having a de novo, a complete from scratch audit each time is probably quite unnecessary, and that if we could look at having a brief update audit, that is to say, track any real changes from the last time, hopefully we can save ourselves most of the $7,000 that's budgeted and actually put it into the event instead.
Thank you, Councillor McTavish.
Well, I wasn't going to speak to the motion, but I just feel I need to clarify where my question was coming from. I wasn't endorsing the idea of getting an economic assessment done every time. I think that's a matter for the trust board or whoever to. Yeah,
I wasn't responding to yours. I was responding to John's statement.
Yeah, that's fine. I thought perhaps that wasn't clear. All I was saying is that I think, given that we have had it, it's useful when a report like this comes to council, so that the community and so that the public can see that there is economic justification for this event being held in the city. I think it's useful to attach that information when it is there. But it's no criticism of staff or anyone. It was just my own concern.
Thank you. Any other speakers? You've already spoken, Councillor Vandervis.
Sorry, which item are we on?
Item 8.
8, yeah, no, so it was 9.
Okay. No further speakers. Right, a reply, Councillor Quadabi. So this is recommendation 1 and 2, and 2 includes the 3 bullet points. Third bullet point is a slight amendment, adding active leased. So no further discussion. I'll put those all together. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Short plan, Mr Chairman. Item 9 is... Okay. Right, moving on to item 9. Now, once again, I'll go to Dr Bidrose. Is there anything that you... No, I'm going to...
We're doing a tag team thing.
Okay. Vicky, we're in your hands.
This is the approval of our statement of intent and service level agreement. A lot of these changes were made before I started, but it is basically a tidy up for the council to go over these documents and approve them. And did you want to?
Just noting, as is in the summary, the Masters Games Trust is exempt. It's a CCO, but it has charitable status and it's exempt from the requirements of being a CCO. However, we do like every year or two just to refresh the statement of intent and service level agreement, even though we're not required to by audit because they are exempt. We do like to do it just to keep on top of good practice. So this is last year's changes and this year's changes just to keep the statement of intent and the service level agreement reflecting what actually happens in practice.
Vicky, can I just ask, not being familiar with the statement of intent, and I assume this is the second one that's come past council. Well, the question I ask is, there are obviously changes from the original. Correct. Is there anything you wanted to highlight to the committee that we should be mindful before we consider the recommendation?
I just went through the document. As I said, I wasn't actually involved in a lot of the changes before I started. There was one of the goals and objectives was removed, but it just seemed to be there was a double up of the intention of that goal, and then note 2, and that there was a lot of activities to be undertaken, marketing, international marketing, which isn't the scope of the Masters Games. It's not our core business. So they're the 2 big ones that were removed.
So you've streamlined it rather than changed.
Common sense.
Aligned it with the council's fraud policy, for example. So before we didn't have one, so now we use the council's.
And
sorry.
A lot of the updates are to fall in line with the game cycle, and that there were requests for reports to council and things that were falling in January, which is before the games, as being in February of every second year. So we aligned them to fall in May, so that it was just made more sense.
Thank you. Questions, Councillor Thompson and Councillor Stevenson.
Look, it's just for clarification really, but the difference between the method of reimbursement for travel and costs, what's the reason for the difference? As instead of being reimbursed actual cost, being paid a set fee as a daily allowance, is that a significant difference, and why?
But I'm sorry, I'm actually at a loss on that one. When I went to Wanganui, I was reimbursed for actual costs. I didn't do a daily allowance. So
what we did in the Masters Games Board, we did discuss that quite some time ago, and what we got from the New Zealand Police was their assessment for how they do it. We looked at how the other Masters Games company do it, and what we agreed to adopt was the New Zealand Police approach to reimbursements. So that's what's in here. Just as easily administered, clearly because it's the one we use the rate that's approved by the New Zealand Police, so we're comfortable that it is completely unimpeachable source.
Well, yes, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. So in essence, if you travel to Wanganui but stay with your mother, you'll get paid a travel allowance regardless of whether or not you've used it.
You can do, although the Masters Games, the travel is fairly limited, to be fair.
Thank you. Councillor Stevenson.
Yeah, there's sort of a few things in here that I think, if councillors want to suggest anything, does it go back to the group Okay, so it's back to the group for their consideration. Yep, fair enough. So I'm looking on page 910. Okay, so it says there, measurement of the Dunedin Master Games will be conducted at the conclusion of each game by way of an economic impact study. I'd like to see it as necessary, you know, just so that there's a little bit of flexibility in there that's not so.
Just say that again, please, Rebecca.
Well, are we taking these as read, or is there going to be a process?
Well, I think Councillor Stevenson's raised that simply because of the previous discussion on item 8. So I think the general feeling around the table was that economic impact study would be done as required, and I think, and it's based very much on cost, and it's very much on whether it's necessary. So I suppose Councillor Stevenson's probably looking for some flexibility in the document to allow that to happen, not a mandatory requirement, but as needed. So.
Yeah, I wasn't.
I appreciate what Councillor Stevenson is doing, but you know, an economic impact study can be. You can make it what you want.
Exactly.
It can be a limited study if you wish. So my own view would be that doesn't need to be changed. If you want to tighten that up somehow or other.
I'm not going to die in a ditch over it. I had a couple of other matters too.
Yeah.
So if the councillor of the mind to leave it as is and just accept that there's a degree of flexibility, then that's fine. Okay, and the next point I had was in marketing, 4.4, and that's on page 9.8. And it's great, you know, national marketing to bring participants, you know, it's a very good list of things that have, but I would like to think that there was to increase the awareness of other attractions in the city to participants while they're here. I mean, there is a lot of other things in the city. It may not be this visit that they want to go and explore, but if they know other things are here. And also, another thing that's quite important to me is not only being aware of other attractions because for future visits, but also long-term investment opportunities. There might be. Just if there is any other mechanism to communicate that to the participants, that's a real bonus for the city. Like ways to invest if you wish to invest in our city. And
I think probably the best thing, if it's all right with you, Councillor, is we'll pass that on to the marketing team.
Right.
It's probably not the job of the Masters Games people, but it's the job of the other council people knowing that these Masters Games participants are going to be in town. So we'll just pass that on to the marketing team and see if there's a good way of linking that up. It's a very good thing to do, I think.
Yep, and let's see. The other thing was on page 9.3. This is, the event happens every second year, and the position is full-time for a period of the year it's on, which is quite proper and appropriate, and part-time for the balance for the year and a half. But however, when you run an event every 2 years, that's still quite a heavy weighting. You know, usually arts festivals, what have you, that run every 2 years wouldn't have necessarily quite such a heavy weighting on the off years. And I don't want to question it too much here, but it's just some DCC have looked at the HR balance, you know? Yes, that's what needs to be happening.
My view would be that's an operational matter.
So this used to be a full-time position all year round, 2 years round, and with the departure of the previous Masters Games manager and taking on this one, we did a full-time assessment of the workload, and in fact the other Masters Games manager, we used to rent him out effectively in order to do things like look after various other events that were going on around the country. We rented him out, but we never actually quite recouped his actual costs. So what we've done is we've made the off year flexible. We've one of the other staff in Rebecca's team has reduced their hours to part-time, and in the off year, Vicky now does what's needed on Masters Games, and the rest of the time she works on other events, and if there's nothing needed on Masters Games, we don't charge the Masters Games. So it's a very much more efficient staffing mechanism than we had previously.
So it's only actually written on 9.3, which is the supporting paper for it, and it is a management issue. So I'm just hoping that that degree of flexibility from management, so that if it becomes in the off year, that more to be put towards other activities, if no harm.
That's exactly what we've done, Councillor.
Thank you. Mayor Cullen.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, queries? If not, someone like to move the recommendation on 9.1. So there were two recommendations, 1 and 2. Moved by Councillor Collins, seconded by Councillor Vandervis. Any discussion? If not, I'll put those two. I'll put motions. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much. Ricky, that wasn't too bad, was it?
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Dr. Grace.
Thank you, Councillor New. So that takes us to item 10, which is notification of agenda items for consideration by the Chair. Councillor Wilson.
I wish we had a process for doing this better, but I just want to note the passing of Richard Skinner. We haven't had a community development since he died, and it's just, I had the pleasure of attending his funeral, and we sometimes note people and sometimes we don't, but his contribution to both the museum and to the Taurawa Disappearing Gun, and as a volunteer on Taieri Gorge, and I think Councillor Stevenson would like to comment that it was only going to the funeral that I noted that the whole cruise ship business came out of his interest in the Taieri Gorge, and what an economic benefit came out of a community good project. And I just think it's nice to occasionally note these things. His contribution to Dunedin community development was substantial, as I learnt, having known him but not knowing all of him, about him at his funeral, and I just think it's nice if we sometimes note those things as we have some others.
Duly noted. Thank you. Councillor No.
It's just Councillor Wilson just jogged my memory. Recently I read in I think it was the Star newspaper about Alex Griffin retiring, who has been a long-time DCC employee coordinating the Task Force Green activity throughout the city, and I just think as a committee and under the community development banner, we should acknowledge his contribution over many, many years. And I can recall the first time I met Alex was out at Waikawati Sports Park, where he arrived in a van with a team of people to clean up an area that no one else had bothered to, because it was just too big a task, overgrown area, broom, gorse, etc. Around the sports park, and his team knocked it into shape, and it's been maintained since, and I think a local group have planted trees in there now, or natives, to help control the vegetation. But that's just one example. I know there's literally probably hundreds of projects that Alex has been involved in with his team, and I'd just like the committee to acknowledge that. There may be other speakers that want to make a comment, but I'd just like to think that we can formally acknowledge his contribution over many, many years, and thank him very much.
If we could have that perhaps noted just in the minutes. Councillor Weatherall.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I've gone public and written a letter to the editor acknowledging Alex's involvement in the community a week or two ago. My understanding is there's going to be a small function at some stage. So a letter of support, acknowledgement would be great. And once we know when that is, obviously those who are able to attend it for him, because he's done a huge amount. And I think Councillor Nunes raised a very good point. One of the greatest points that's come out of Alex's involvement is the fact that the number of people he's taken out of, taken into work schemes and sent on to full-time employment. His best people disappeared on him. And that was a challenge for Alex, because every time he got a project up and running, and the ones that took leadership on site and those things, usually got permanent roles somewhere, both inside council or outside or in other parts of their life. And the number that he restored to a full working habit would be significant, to say the least. And the days that the whole program started, there was no money on the task force screen. We used to have to argue everywhere we got a cent, and the whole scheme has been one of the most enduring and successful that I've seen that type, so well done.
Thank you. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering if you could take a note to see if perhaps appropriate staff could have a look at the situation in the area where I live. There is a fair-sized community area put aside as, I presume, a playground, It's on the corner of Larnock Road and Braeburn Street, and while there's a fair amount of land there, sloping land, there's just 2 swings, I think, and a seesaw. But it's surrounded by a macrocarpa hedge, which is, I think, detracts from people using it. And maybe in this day and age we could look at least on the Larnock Road side, lowering or taking out that hedge, and which would then open up the park. It's like a little secret patch there at the moment that doesn't really get used by anyone. But I think in the summer it's starting to be used by 1 or 2 that shouldn't be there. So it may be timely before summer or spring for someone just to have a look at it. I'm not saying take it away, but just have a look at the hedge on Larnock Road side anyhow. They may have other ideas, but okay.
I will bring that to the attention of Parks and we'll come back.
Sure.
Councillor Stevenson.
Yes, I just wanted to raise 2 minutes. First, to do with the Task Force Green and Alec Griffiths leaving. It's just the importance of the Task Force Green. I really sincerely hope that the council and future councils carry on with it. It's just, it mentors and it gives opportunity for people to get work who normally wouldn't be able to enter or find it difficult to enter work. And I think that traditionally that's what city councils quite often do, is give that opportunity to the more marginalised people to have a go, and they do go on and do something well. So I would be really loath to see that we lose momentum, because we've got a very good worker in Alex and we need to keep that going. The other thing is the walk track strategy. We have a walk track strategy. I've contacted Dr. Bidrose about this. It is now very, very, very out of date. I've experienced problems with small grants, with people coming and asking for grants to fix up walk tracks, because we don't have an organised policy with what we do with walk tracks, improve them, maintain them, and what have you. That policy very, very much needs to be done now. It was going to be done in the transportation strategy. That hasn't been able to be achieved, and quite logically, and it could potentially be taken up now in the recreation strategy update. So I just would like to see some sort of report so that it doesn't get lost, that the report goes to at least the new council.
Can you clarify what it is that you're actually wanting?
The walk track strategy, which is now out of date, was meant to be reviewed as part of the transportation strategy. It wasn't able to be achieved, and now it's going to be undertaken as part of the recreation parks. Is that correct?
Dr. Bidrose, can you cover?
Yes. Councillor Stevenson emailed me a while back asking what was happening to it. We talked to the Parks and Rec team. The final strategy in the suite, we've looked at replacing our 48 strategies with kind of 8. A lot of those things, like the walking track strategy, is 1 paragraph. It's not really what you might call a strategy. So the work is absolutely underway, as I advised you. That Pauline is pulling the walking track work in, and it will be part of the Parks and Recreation strategy.
Your Worship.
I'd just like to add my tribute to Alex Griffin's contribution, but also assure Councillor Stevenson and the community that if there is any risk to the funding for Task Force Green, it will not be from this council, it will be from work and income. This council is committed to Task Force Green, and any risks are not from here.
Thank you. If there's no... Councillor McTavish?
Yeah, just one that's been on my radar for a while. I had some people contact, or one person in particular contact me asking about digitisation of timetables for council facilities, council community facilities, in particular the Caledonian, and staff worked on that, and I think put up a timetable that was available for this person and anyone else to access. But it just struck me that there's huge potential to look into that for other community facilities, to avoid people travelling to a ground and finding it full, or having to go through a convoluted process of ringing people or whatever to find out how that facility is booked. So I just wondered whether or not that was something that could be considered. I think I raised it previously, but might have got lost.
Okay, we'll make sure that's on the next chair's briefing. If there's no further agenda items, I'll declare the public part of this meeting closed. and move that we go into non-public as per the audit paper. I have a seconder for that. Seconder, Councillor Bezet. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you.